Hey guys, Darren Carr here, coach of Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of our round review series. On today's episode, we will be reviewing round 21, where we saw a lot of big scores again this round. Pretty common this time of year, where a lot of coaches are going 125, 2500 or 2600. So really, some big up and down scores again. Like we saw a lot of midfielders go pretty big this week, which is a bit of a a trend this week where a lot of a lot of midfielders that were underperforming go big. So you're talking Merritt, Sinclair, and stuff. Merritt, Walsh, stuff like that. Really turn it on its head, and you saw a lot of those midfielders that were going good, like your Tom Greens and even your Errol Gouldens and stuff like that. Dunkley is another example that went poorer. So it was just one of those weeks where I think a lot of teams struggled that were more on top end, where the lower teams that haven't really had the luxury of trading out, such as my team, really performed well. So, but not here to talk about all that. We're here to talk about and go through the game. So, are we going through the game by game, talking about all the popular players, who we should be trading out, who should be trading in as we go through, and dropping a few things here and there. So let's get into it. Try and keep this pod to a little bit of decent time this week. So we'll start with the first Friday night game, which there was two Friday night games. Stupid, but okay. Bulldogs got the win over the Melbourne. Pretty straightforward there. So we saw Bontempelli, who popped up for a massive 135. He is just so hard to read, man. I did consider him as a captain option in my captain video. Just couldn't trust him. His last 4 weeks have been pretty shocking. I think he had only just scraped to 100, twice in the last 4 weeks. So I couldn't really trust his form. But this is just classic Bontempelli. He pops up for a few big games. 33 disposals, 7 marks, 5 tackles, kicked 2 goals as well, 135. You're happy with that? Probably not looking at trading him in, honestly. Looking at their run, it's not the greatest, and probably one of the reasons why I wasn't so bullish on trading into Law last week, just because I'm heavily focused on the fixture, but I still think Trelaw will be fine. Speaking of Trelaw, he was next up with a 116. Probably not huge in terms of reward for what you thought was going to be a massive ceiling score from him. I think as an owner, I was pretty happy with a 116. Not to get too hurt, especially when he kicked 2 goals in that. I thought it could have been massive, like a 140. But yeah, 116, probably not a lot of reward for the trade, particularly when a lot of people were trading out the likes of a Butters or a Rosie as such, who we'll get into a little bit later. But they outscored him, but quite comfortably. So yeah, that's just part and parcel of this time of the year, luxury trade season. You are quite frequently going to be trading out players that are going to go better than what the people that you're trading in are going to do. So that's just the unlucky part of this time of the year in fantasy. Particularly with league matchups or something, maybe I wanted to discuss this. It's so tough this time of year because everyone's on the same playing field. It's just a matter of if your primos are going to line up and show up on the day. I remember last year when obviously I was the top coach, and I didn't think I won any of my grand finals or even any of my league matchups in the last 4 weeks, just because everyone's on the same level playing field, and it's just a matter of if your team rocks up on the day. So it's just really tough, and I don't know what you can do about it. It's just tough. I know a lot of the top coaches are complaining that they're out of finals already. So, but yeah, continuing with a few more players. Dale popped up for 114. That anyone still had him? I wouldn't be considering. I don't think his run's any good to finish off the season. I think we have a lot of other defenders that we should be considering, which we'll talk about as we get through the games. But yeah, and the only one I also wanted to talk about in terms of Western Bulldogs was Tim English. I think he has to go this week. Has a tougher run to finish off the season. In 98, while it is an okay score, it's not amazing when you have the likes of Cherry and Marshall that are just absolutely blitzing at the moment and outscoring him by 30, 40, 50 points at the moment, which is just ridiculous to say. So I think if you have English, you have to trade him out this week to either a Cherry or a Marshall. Whoever you don't have, I think you need those two. Those two could absolutely hurt you in the final 2 weeks. Last final 3 weeks where they have the easiest run to go, and they're going to be easy captain options to finish off. So absolutely make those trades if you can make it happen. Which should be no issue realistically. I think it's only costing you about 100k to go from English to Marshall, which is what I'm doing currently. Whereas English to a Cherry, I think, is even less than that. So you should be able to get that done either way. So looking to trade out English if you can, which is what I'm doing. But on to Melbourne. Max Gawn went back theirs up with a 136. Good to see him finish in some good form. And I would like to entertain some possibility that you could go to a Gawn to finish off the season. But I just don't think it's as much of a trade that you want to consider. Like, I think Marshall and Cherry are pretty much ones you must have. Just looking at the run here, he's got Port next week, so it could be a pretty good matchup. But then he finished off with Wits and then Darcy Cameron, who are a bit tougher in terms of matchups. So not one I'm probably going to entertain at all. I think you just go straight to the top with Marshall and Cherry there, who are going to go massive. But yeah, good to see him back in some form to finish off the season. He was so good for most of the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he still finished off to be the highest averaging player to finish off. So that would be good from him. The only other one I wanted to talk about in this game in terms of Melbourne was Rivers, who put up a 101. Glad to have him. Just poor first half really. I think he was on like 31 points at the half, and had a massive third quarter where I think he had like 50 points, which is what Rivers can do. And finished with a 1-on-1, so it didn't hurt me in the end. With a lot of other defenders not performing as well as they probably should have. But we'll move on from this game. I think there's no one else really we want to talk about in there. Go on to the other Friday night game, which was the West Coast Eagles and the Suns, which straight off the bat, the Gold Coast Suns, I nearly called them the Gold Coast cunts. Excuse my language, but that's how I feel about them right now. They are terrible. To lose this game where I was so bullish on them, finish off the season strong, they should win 3 out of the last 4 matchups, as the exact words I said. And they dropped the first one against the West Coast Eagles, who are still a rabble. I know they're starting to perform, but you should be winning this game, hands down, no matter what. And that just made the likes of my trading, like Noah Anderson, 98. While it's not terrible, this should have been a walk-up 110, 120 for him. Same with Flanders, 73. He got my -3 on my team review video. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. But he was shocking, especially because I had the VC on Flanders. That really hurt. It's just shocking. I can't believe that this, after 12 years of their football club history, that they're still losing to the bottom sides where they should be fighting for finals. They've got the talent, they've got the list, they've got the coach, they have everything they need. They just don't have the heart or the desire to win. And that is just shocking. And I didn't hear Damien Hardwick's press conference, but I would say it'd be very similar to the previous one where they need to grow the fuck up. So that is just, if I had to give a big, I don't even know what I'd give them. Just, they're the big flogs of the week, honestly. But in terms of individual players, no one really we're talking about from the Eagles. Maybe the only one I wanted to mention was Clay Hall, scored a 17, so that's good for next year. If he does get dropped, that he will still be basement price next year, which would be awesome. Because that's always the tough part of the time this year, where we're not trading in these rookies that have prospect to be fantasy scorers for us. Obviously, we want him next year, right, where we can lock him in as a mid starter for us. So that's the only thing I really want to mention. Obviously, Duggan maybe is another one that I wanted to mention, just given that he's more than likely going to be traded out of that side. So be interesting to see what he can do at another club. Will he still have the same output? If he goes to Hawthorn, which is where I sort of expect him to land, then maybe it's probably one we won't want to consider at all for them, because I think he would just be more of a lockdown defender than be this sort of, where he takes a lot of kick-ins and stuff like that. So that's all I really want to mention. Obviously, I did speak about Anderson Flanders already, but I don't think there's any concern there. I still like the Gold Coast run, so I still really like the trading in Anderson. Their run is still really juicy. I do expect them to win. That could obviously backfire, but just need them to start winning, and then Anderson will pop up for these big 140 scores, which I do expect to come. So backing the boys in. I can understand if you don't want to trade him in, though, given the history he's gone. I think that's 3 games in a row he hasn't hit 100, so really disappointing. But we'll move on to the North in Richmond game, the wooden spoon of the year, and North got the win. So it looks like Richmond are now locked in to get the wooden spoon there, so which is probably a positive, honestly. If from a Richmond side of view, it made sense to lose that game and get the number one pick, and I know they already have a pretty strong draft hand. Plus, they have a plethora of people that want out of the club, so be interesting to see how that goes off in the off season. But they didn't lack of trying. Honestly, they did send Graham to Sheasel, which Sheasel had 100, so nothing amazing, but wasn't like a super hard tag in that sense that he was on him the entire time. It just sort of ran with him, where we saw Sheasel still have 29 disposals, 5 marks, 3 tackles, and yeah, didn't hit the scoreboard, which is fortunate as a non-owner. Um, yeah, he's still pretty good. He have West Coast next week, so they should be good again and should score well. So if you don't have Sheasel, then you could look at trading him in, but he's not one I'm super keen on. I think we're looking at a few other guys that have a better run to finish off. But we'll go back to the top here with Cherry, 150. Like I already said, with the English chat, I think you have to own him for the last 3 weeks. His run is unreal. Not the best. I would say Marshall's is definitely better. So if you have the choice to trade in one of them, I'd definitely probably be trading in a Marshall rather than a Cherry. Even though Marshall is a little bit more expensive, Cherry, I think Marshall can still hit the better scores. I think that it definitely has a better run, right? So I think that's where we're just looking. But both have elite runs, so definitely look to grab both of them if you can. I would say, even if you have a Grundy, if you have an English, if you have any other ruck, just make the trade. I think you have to do that. But LDU popped up for 123. That's reward you would want as an owner if you picked them up a few weeks ago with these easy runs to come. That would be pretty nice. Tom Green, sorry, not Tom Green, Tom Powell, 116. And is he a trading option? I still probably can do it. Didn't have a huge amount of CBAs. I think he played mainly off halfback. Again, with the likes of McKercher, and didn't take too many kick-ins. I think he took a couple, but not many. Where is he here? What am I looking at? 37%. So not really a midfielder, just more of a halfbacker. So it is one you could consider, but I guess it's probably a question that we need to answer is we're looking at 2 main guys in the forward line. I'd say 2. Sorry, I'm trying to get in the camera. So you got Power, which probably isn't going to be a huge amount spoken on, but he has gone back to back 110, 120. And then you got Philippou, who came back for his first game and put up like a 95 or something like that in the midfield. So who is a much cheaper, I must say. He is like 450k as such. So who would you rather have? I'd probably honestly rather have Philippou. I think his run to finish off the season is much better than the likes of Tom Power. So I'd probably be going there first. Plus he is cheaper, a little bit of a less risk. Obviously, if you can have both, or you can probably have one of them as your F7 and you can loop between a couple of them, that's probably the most ideal situation. But if you had to straight up go with one on field, then I'd probably go with Philippou, just given the roles there. The run's much better, so and there's no uncertainty where with it does Fisher come back into the side when he is fit and then take Power spot. Is that still a concern? I'm not 100% sure. With North, not sure what their plans are. They did trade Fisher in, so they probably want to try and fit him in somewhere because I think they're paying him, 600-700k a year. You've got to fit him in somewhere, all right? You can't just let that rot in the twos. So, yeah, I'd probably just feel the certainty with Philippou having that role in the midfield where he's earned that, whereas Tom Power's probably just more of a fill-in role while the likes of Fisher and McKercher are out, where McKercher's not come back and he's still got that secondary role. So, but yeah, that was sort of do it with Tom Power. McKercher came back with a 97. Had 31 disposal, just didn't really like a lot of the marks and tackles in this game. I think he did cop a little bit of attention from, I don't even know who he copped it from. Maybe it was like a Campbell or something like that. Just putting a bit of pressure on him, so he wasn't able to get a lot of those chip marks in the back line, but he was able to get plenty of those, handball receives and running off the halfback. So he's one that I want to lock in for next year, honestly. He looks like he's going to be an elite player, very much like a Sheasel from a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I'm really bullish on starting him next year. Should keep defender status. I think guaranteed he's played the entire year, so that would be nice to have him there. Simpkin with an 80, you take that. Could have been a lot better, obviously, with the matchup, but I'm taking that. I think he was on like 37 at the half, so was tracking for an 80 the entire game pretty much. Just didn't really get a lot of marks or tackles, unfortunately. I think he had a lot of tackles, just a lot of them were broken tackles, so just need him to improve on that area just a little bit. The role was still there from what I could see, 70%, second CBA taker, so really happy with him there. Yeah, sorry, keep going with that one, get rid of that. Yeah, I still probably not one I'm looking to trade in anymore, just given that they've only got really one more game to finish off that is going to be good for them. So we go back to the inside mids now. I think they only have West Coast, and then they go into Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn to finish off. So one I'm probably not looking to trade in anymore. Could even become a trade out target in the next couple of weeks. But yes, yeah, you should be holding him for one more week, I'd say. And that's probably it for that team. We'll move on. Oh, sorry, I did want to mention someone. Jane Stevenson, if you had him, I know a couple of the top coaches had him. 99, absolutely taking that. He did butcher the ball a hell of a lot, though, I will say. And there was quite a few times where he kicked it out in the fall. So there is concerns with his job security, so be aware of that. If Fisher does come back in, does Jane Steven instantly come out? I'd personally say that's probably more the case than it is with the likes of a Powell. So, yeah, just be concerned about that. That's all I want to say. But moving on to Richmond, we'll just say Nenko has came back with a 123. As I expected, he was always going to be good. Sucks he got concussed and I had to trade him out, but in the end of the day, I got onto Cherry, who is much better at this point in time. So happy with that. Did a bit of an update with the whole ruck situation when we had to trade out Max Gawn. Marshall is still the clear option that we should have gone to, but Cherry is very quickly approaching him with those back-to-back 150s. Yeah, I think the total points is very similar, but I think Marshall's just edge ahead there, where he hasn't dropped below 115 in the last 4 weeks, so he is just an absolute must-have. And finally, Taranto 111. Did well in this game, just to scrap on. Looked a little bit underdone with that. I don't know what he did last week, but he just looked a bit underdone, looked a bit lethargic. So probably one I'm not looking to target, particularly with a run home. Who do they have? Hawthorn and Gold Coast. It's not the easiest matchup. The Saints are getting a little bit tougher now as well. We saw the likes of Dunkley go pretty poor against the likes of St Kilda this week, so probably not a matchup to target for me, so I wouldn't be trading in the likes of Taranto at all. But that's pretty much about it. Not targeting a Baker or Prestia or a Hop or anything like that. Not even looking at a short. I think his days are numbered. But yeah, we'll move on to the next game. Next game, we saw Geelong beat Adelaide by 5 points. The Adelaide boys couldn't get it done. I did back them, and I thought they'd get the win, but they choked a little bit there. We saw Cameron go 120, and he probably was the forward that I should have picked up. Kicked 6 goals. They have a really decent run home as well, so probably one I should have picked up on, especially with Hawkins out. Bit of an oversight from my point of view, but I don't mind him as an option to finish off. If I look, how do I look at it? So obviously, Geelong go Fremantle, St Kilda, and West Coast Eagles to finish off. So two really good matchups to finish off the season. Three are a bit tougher, but yeah, could be pretty decent. Especially at Optus, where they has a lot more space. We are seeing him creep up a lot more up the field. So if you really want to back in, a key forward from here on out, he's probably one that you could go to if you're, looking for something a bit of a point difference. Besides that, we saw Tom Stewart with a 107. Yeah, pretty happy with that. I wasn't expecting anything blinding from him. Just trucking along. Still think he's a great trading target if you don't have him already. Like I said, does have a good finish off. Besides that, we saw a couple of mid-table guys. 72 from Manor, 71 from Humphreys. Their probably time is getting very close to being up. I think you probably hold them for one more week and then they'll be maxed out in cash. But if the cash on their head gets you to a player that you want, then I'd absolutely be advertising to jump off them. But with Holmes is an interesting one because he's been pretty good, over the year. Realistically, he's been an awesome pick to start, and just sort of starting to fade a little bit more as he's sort of moved out of the midfield. If I have a look at that, I think his numbers would have dropped. Not watching a huge amount of this game, honestly, but 60%. Um, really just sort of chopping and changing with Stewart there, so not really getting as many numbers as we have seen in the past. So is it a concern for me? Is it one I'll just stick through? It probably is time. You could probably jump off to more of those superstar guys, like you're talking your Newmans, your Sinclairs, your Shields and stuff like that. If you don't have any of those guys, then you probably can just make the leap there. That are probably going to be a bit more consistent at that higher level. Even though Holmes has a pretty good run, there is the possibility that he does put up a few more 70s. So maybe make the trade if you can. And finish off Myers. I've put him in the trade out targets this week just because you can't be copping these 50s in the forward line, unfortunately. He does have a good run, as I've said the last couple of weeks, but he did cop a bit of attention in this game. I think it was from like a Keys or something. No, not a Keys, sorry. What's his name? Was it a Michael Lenny? I think probably just stuck on him a little bit, just knowing how damaging he could be. So I just don't think he can. I think it's probably just time you trade him out, and it's really tough this week. I think for trade out targets where we have a lot of guys that have good matchups coming. So is it worth just holding them 1 week, or do you jump early and then prepare for your next week's trade? So that's where the interesting chat. But I think jumping off him, you got plenty of different options that you can go to, like a Philippe or more. We talked about Tom Powers there as well. So probably just going onto those guys that can probably be a bit more consistent for you rather than getting these 50s and then a 90 the week after, a 110 as such. But onto Adelaide, we saw Dawson return with a 104. He was pretty banged up in this game. This was looking like a 120 plus. Just sort of spent a little bit of time off the ground with, I think, a dislocated wrist or thumb or something like that in the final term. Yeah, definitely could have gone 120 there. So, a bit of a sneaky one if you really want to trade him in. The run isn't good though, so I'm not particularly looking at it. He's got 3 harder matchups to finish off the team against Western Bulldogs, Port, and then Sydney. So, two teams that are in ripping form in Western Bulldogs and Port, and then Sydney to finish off, who I do expect to bounce back at some point. So, probably one I'm not looking at. Same with Laird. I probably would even look to trade out Laird if you have him there. And Dowling probably is the rookie downgrade to get rid of this week. His cash is now dried up. Time to go from him. So yeah. And also just shout out to Pick Keys. He put up on nice 100 there after failing a little bit last week. So if you still had him, he bounced back, which is nice. And Dan Curtin for next year mainly should be a nice pickup for us if he can continue to drop these lower scores and keep his average really low. So move on to the Carlton game. No, Collingwood and Carlton game. Sorry, words are not coming out today. Where Collingwood got the win by 3 points in the game of the match, the game of the round. Honestly, this was a cracker to watch. Thought Carlton got on in it, but couldn't get over the line with the final kick after the siren. But we saw, really, Dacos is the only one that we were looking at in terms of Collingwood. He went 92 and wasn't hugely tagged, as we sort of flagged, honestly. I thought he would cop a lot more attention from a chin cotter, but he honestly didn't do a huge amount to him. So to get away with a 92 in probably I would classify as an untagged game is pretty positive. I'm still glad I sort of traded him out. And I still think he's a great trade out target for the rest of the year. Obviously discussing that the run home is pretty tough for them and for the tags specifically. Like, he's got Sydney next week, who knows if they're going to show up or not, then Brisbane. But you would expect a tag from Sydney and a tag from Brisbane for sure. So I'd still highly recommend trading him out. Not stealing the ceiling from him anyway, so I think it's probably time you can just jump off. Maybe a Cripps, if you still had him, he put up another 66, jump off as well. Pendlebury, well, he's in his 400s, went 94. Not really looking at him. He's gone. Yeah, that's really it from Collingwood there. Long, I guess maybe is the only other one I wanted to maybe look at. He is a different prospect next year, particularly if he can continue to keep his averages low. So put it in your black book for next year. But on to Carlton, where we saw Nick Newman have a massive ceiling score of 145. He was the trade-in target of the week, honestly. 34 disposals, 12 marks, 5 tackles. He just looks like a Whitfield. Honestly, he is just wrapping it up back there and getting it done. Really like him as a trading option still. While it's not the best run to finish off, I must say, just looking at it here, he goes Hawthorn this week, who are a green matchup now, which is surprising. But then he goes West Coast and then Saints. So it's not a bad run, but he does have a few tougher ones in there. So, but I think he'll be fine, honestly. Yeah, still love him. I think he's still under 900k, so jump on him while you can. Walsh returned into some form after a poor month of sub 100s, up to 130, 30 disposals, 10 marks, 6 tackles, just did it all around the ground. Pretty strong stat line there, so I think he'll be good to finish off the season. So again, could be a good trading option if you don't have him. If unlucky if you did trade him out, which is sort of the theme of this round. Besides that, Holland's back with a 91. He has been super consistent in that role. It's unbelievable how good he has been. Anyone that jumped on would be fairly happy with that. And besides that, my boy Kerno, 51. Traded him in. And first time he didn't hit the scoreboard this year, which is ridiculously unlucky from my part. Just can't get it right, unfortunately. And could definitely be going for me this week, even though I do love his run home, and now he is behind in the common race. Yeah, he's got Hawthorn next week, so I'm not quite sure what to do there. Still don't mind him as a trading option if you're really bullish on him, like I was last week, but would really like some reward for effort, unfortunately. But I'll move on to the next game where we saw Port Adelaide absolutely thrash Sydney Swans by 112 points in a really big upset on game, unfortunately. I did not see this coming. I thought it'd be a bit tighter contest. Did expect sort of Port to win, but yeah, not by 112 points, that's for sure. But the two trade out options from last week, Rosie and Butters, both put up 128 and 126. So that's a bit of a slap in the face, unfortunately, for anyone that did trade him out. You can't expect those sort of things from these games. Sydney have always been a tough matchup, but they just didn't rock up in this game, so that is really tough. And this is part of the fantasy of this world that we live in. At this time of year, you trade out these players, and there is the potential that they go massive on you. They have shown a ceiling this season, so yeah, that's a bit disappointing. And honestly, they're pretty much probably trading targets. Honestly, they've got a good run to finish off. Not the greatest run, obviously, but they're still pretty decent. They go if I can get this up here, they go Melbourne this week, and then they go finish off at Adelaide and Freo. So green matchup, then into two neutral matchups to finish off. So they're in some ripping form as well. So they definitely could be huge targets if they continue that. In terms of their CBA usage, I don't think it was too different. If I have a look here, Butters and Rosie both about that 60%. So yeah, no issues in terms of role. We have seen in the past where Rosie or Butters has spent a little bit more time forward, but no issues there today. So I think they're pretty good trading targets. Saw Houston bounce back with a 126. That's just Houston. It's a roller coaster. You're going to get some big games, you get some smaller games. So yeah, not really too concerned with him. Not looking at trading him in at all. Besides that, you got Logan Evans, who I think a lot of people traded out last week with a 54. He's cashing that done, so you can definitely trade him out. Same with the Dowling, and he cash him out now. But on to Sydney, obviously a poor day for them. Only had Errol Goulden, he put up a 101, so you're happy with him doing that. That's just Errol Goulden in a nutshell. He still works his butt off and had 90% time on ground, and he's just super consistent there for anyone that did own him. 25 disposals, 4 marks, 5 tackles. Just super reliable and going to be a fantasy star for us to finish, for a long, long time. But a big trading target for last week was a Matty Roberts, who did back it up with a 93. Not as the heights that we have seen in the last couple of weeks, but 93. You're absolutely taking that in a game where they did get smacked. So that was a pretty good trade-in if you did get him. Is he still a trading option this week? I haven't really looked at their run for defenders as such, but I'll have a quick look here. Sydney, go Collingwood, Essendon, then Adelaide. So one easier matchup, one neutral, and then one tougher matchup. So I don't know. It doesn't fill me up with a huge amount of confidence. Definitely could be one you could put in your black book for next year, though, is something I wanted to mention. Definitely could, if he continues this role, could become like the the Lloyd of in the past sort of 10 years that we have relied upon. So I really do like him there. but probably not a trading option for me. I think we have a lot of different defender options. Unless you want a D7, then I absolutely don't mind that. But yeah, not in terms of on field, I don't think. Grundy, 84. It's an easy matchup, so that's pretty disappointing from him specifically against Port Adelaide, against Sweet there. So yeah, it's time to jump off. I think you have to just get to Cherry or Marshall, as I've said all throughout this pod. Just trade him out as you can. And the only other one I want to talk about was Heaney, 68. He just doesn't care anymore. Brownlow's off the table. Did kick a goal, but he just didn't show up this game. So, one, I'm still not looking to trade out. I don't think it's at that point that he's that bad that you need to trade him out. But given that he has a decent run still, if he did have a different, tougher run, then maybe I'd consider it with the form they're in, but not with the way that they could turn it on with the switch and he could go 120. So I don't think it's worth trading him out, unfortunately. Just back him in. But yeah, I think that's about it for that game. I'll move on to the game I don't really want to talk about. GWS and Hawthorn. My boys couldn't get over the line and lost by 2 points after being 28 points up in the third term. So 3/4 time. But we saw Lockie Whitfield, 137, just absolutely killing it at the moment. Has to be the most informed player of the season this point in time, and has been an awesome pick all year pretty much. 37 disposals, 10 marks, 2 tackles. He's just racking up back there. And yeah, really being really damaging with it. So I can see why they love it in his hands. He just pinpointed a lot of kicks into the forward 50. So that's going to continue. It is a tougher run home, I must say, in terms of their run. So GWS go Brisbane this week, so tough matchup. So I wouldn't be considering a VC at all, or C. But then finished off with Freo and Western Bulldogs, who are surprisingly a good matchup for defenders. So maybe don't trade him this week, but maybe trade him next week. If you don't have him, you probably want him for the last 2 games. But we saw Hogan kick 5 goals and score 110. Honestly, any full forward that I could have picked could have gone a lot better than what Kerner did. So it's just the way my fantasy season's gone, but that's all right. Brent Daniels is maybe a bit of a smoky for if you really want looking for a different forward option. He went into the midfield in the 4th term and absolutely killed it in there. I think he had 12 disposals, kicked a goal and such. So I think he had like a 50-point 4th quarter. So he absolutely killed it in there and pretty much won them the game. So if they're going to continue with that, then that is something that we need to consider. But a big part of what we need to talk about with the GWS is the boys that are set to return in Kelly and in Canelio. So I expect both of them to return this week, if not the week after for sure. So with your likes of your Peatlings, your Brent Daniels, then they're only very short term prospects because you're going to get these 2 boys that are going to come into the midfield quite heavily and take those points. So yeah, while Peatling was good this week and was a decent trade in, he's still going to be a bit of a concern to follow up pretty shortly. And I'd probably, if you have the option, you'd probably go to a Philippou for sure. Again, Peatling, put him in your black book for possibly next year if they look to change their midfield up and allow him to run in there. I think they absolutely should. He provides something different from them. He provides a lot of tackling pressure. So, yeah, while Tom Green's getting 2 tackles, he's getting 10 tackles. So, love his tackling pressure. So, should keep him in there. But I don't think they're going to. Tom Green, I did trade him out this week and he did put up an 84, kicked a late goal, which hurt a little bit, but 84, I'm absolutely happy with that. Does have a tougher run to finish off, so I don't mind trading him out. He's in my trade out options this week, and when I go through my trades later on, he's definitely one that you should be considering. Yeah, absolutely should be one that you should be going for. Besides that, really nothing else to really mention in terms of GWS. Bedford did spend a bit of time on Will Day in the first half, and that did really hinder him. Where he said Will Day only went 40 points. So, the Bedford tag is definitely well and truly alive. So, it's something that we do need to be mindful of. So, he has more than likely has Neil in your sights next week. So, be careful, especially if you have a Neil. Maybe look to trade him out. Yeah, definitely going to be a tough game for him. But the only one we need to talk about in terms of Hawthorn is Dylan Moore. Kicked 1 goal, 2, 88 points. You're pretty happy with that. He's just consistent at that sort of 90 range. And could be F1 next year, honestly. He is just super consistent. He didn't have the greatest game. Didn't get many disposals. I think he got pretty clamped pretty well there by an Iden. But yeah, uh, an Amon 124 pops up for these good games, takes all the kick in. So I do expect him to have a few of these good games, especially because GWS did miss a lot. So I think he took 10 kick ins or something like that. So yeah. But I think that's sort of do it for this game. Unfortunately, we'll move on to the next one. So Essendon won by 1 point over Fremantle, which was a bit of an upset. Did not expect this at all, but yeah, we take that. We saw Merrick at 118, which is a good thing to see. He had been pretty poor over the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, so it was good to see him get bounced back, and especially because we expected a tag in this game. It was one of those games where the coach had come out and said they were going to put a bit of tag in him. We saw the likes of Erasmus come into the side and was expected to do the tag, and I think that was true to some extent, but it wasn't like a super hard tag. Um, yeah, and ended up getting subbed out because he wasn't really doing too much. So yeah, just didn't really work out that way, and probably ultimately lost in the game. So happy to see him bounce back in some form. Again, tricky one if you want to trade him out or not. Their run isn't the greatest to finish off. If you look at inside mids, got Gold Coast this week, so I'll probably be holding this week, but then finish off with Sydney and Brisbane Lions. So again, could be one that you want to look at trading out next week. But I'm probably pretty bullish on just holding him throughout the season, particularly because I started with him is my main reasoning. Same with Caldwell. I think he's easily top sort of 2 or 3 in the forward line, so you're just holding him on there. The CBAs for Essendon were pretty tight this week, from what I saw. So you saw the likes of Merritt 73%, Parrish 77%, and then Caldwell was 67%. So really tight with those three, and then had a few others pop in there as well. So good to see that they are starting to, figure out what they're going to do with that midfield group. Gives us a bit more of an idea what's going to happen in terms of next year. So yeah, happy with that. Parrish did return with a 107. One I'm probably not looking at this year, but definitely one we could look at next year if he's going to continue, this form in this role. He did have 34 disposals, as we know he does. He racks up. Just didn't really get the tackles to really help his score truck along there. Yeah, definitely going to be cheaper option next year, I think, given he's had a few injury concerns this year. And Nick Martin is probably the only one I want to talk about in this game, where he put up an 86. He was on terrible. I think he was on like 12 points at like nearly half time. So he really saved this game pretty late. Kicked 2 goals. Honestly, could be a bit of a trade out target this week if you have the you have flexibility. I think he goes pretty well against Saints. The Suns. We have seen some big scores against the Suns in terms of kick out players. So we've seen Whitfield go 145. Zorko go 120-ish as well. So I do expect a good score from him this week. But yeah, definitely again could go the week after. So I'd personally be holding Nick Martin. But if you want to jump early, just thinking he's not going to have that good of game, because that role is pretty gone. Yeah, then could jump off. But I think it's probably one to hold on to. Besides that, I think we saw, what was his name? Archie Roberts, I think is his name. Something like that. No, maybe it wasn't. I thought there was a debutant that went really well in this game that I'm just not seeing anymore. It's not that important anymore. So, anyways, we'll move on to the Fremantle side. We saw the top 5 there. Pretty typical of those 5s to go big. Luke Ryan returned to some form with a 121. Some of the clips I've seen from this game are absolute filth. Like, it's just classic Luke Ryan, and the fact that they lost just absolutely rubs salt into the wounds, because their coach is not going to be happy. They're not going to. He probably comes out and says we looked for disposals again, and that's probably a reason why we lost. And that just goes back onto Luke Ryan, where he's just doing these stupid 15-meter chip kicks all the time, where it's going backwards and then going straight back to him. And he's done that 2 or 3 times, and it's just funny to see. But yeah, 121. You're not looking at it. Don't be encouraged by that score. That's going to drop off very quickly. So probably still a trade out target for mine. If you still have him, you take that 120. But yeah, you got kissed a little bit there. Andy Brayshaw with a 109. Yeah, taking that. In this matchup should have been probably a bit more, but Yeah, wasn't absolutely firing. Same with Hayden Young. Did kick 2 goals to rely on a 106. So, yeah, still not going to hurt you, but probably going to hold him this week because I think who do they have? They have West Coast Eagles, was it? No, they have Geelong. They have the easiest matchup for midfielders, so you're probably holding all the likes of Brayshaw, Sarong, and Young this week. I'm pretty confident with that. So all should hit the 3-digit mark. So yeah, all three of those pretty much can stay this week. Even Jordan Clark's probably the one you could probably trade out, given that he's losing a fair few points to the likes of Newman and Sinclair now. You could probably easily jump from him to one of those guys. I think they're very similarly priced, so he's probably the only one that's hurting you from this group currently. But I think that sort of does it for this game. We'll move on to the final game, and then we'll finish off the video. So the final game, we saw Brisbane Lions absolutely smack the St Kilda, and yeah, there were some pretty big fantasy scores honestly in this game where we saw Sinclair 132. He is a massive trading target. Does have a pretty good run to finish off the season. Playing the same sort of role as a Tom Stewart, where he plays a little bit in the CBAs, but then goes a lot in the halfback and racks up there. So have a look at that here. Had 40% CBAs, and then obviously went a lot back and got a lot of +6s back there. Where what do you have? He had six marks and had a lot of tackles. So yeah, 132, pretty good run home as well. Obviously got Richmond and then Geelong, so 2 really good matchups, and then Carlton to finish off, who are a better matchup for defenders. So I think he's one that you want to jump on soon as well. He's getting a bit more pricey now. I think he's at the 900k. So yeah, jump on if you can. Marshall, as I've already spoken about, is the number 1 trade-in target this week. If you don't own him, I think that's pretty much set in stone. He's got, and I already spoke about it. Don't need to go on about it anymore. Jack Steele, another 108. You're happy with that? Hopefully, can put up a decent ceiling score to finish off the season. Got obviously a great matchup. And Philippou, who will be coming into my side this week with a 96. So, yeah, all those boys should be targets, honestly. They've got one of the easiest runs to finish off the season, and I think you want to be on all of them because they can all go big on their day. And we have seen traditionally that when Saints are flying, they can rack up some big scores. I think they were the highest scoring team all last year, so we saw glimpses of that today. I don't think there was any. The Wang put up a 91, nothing too crazy there. That's just about what he does. Bit more influential than he is stat stuffing. Wood, pretty disappointing. 55. That's pretty poor if you did trade him in. Paddy Dow, 46. Maybe one to put in the book for next year. 40% time on ground, did get subbed. If he does get run in the midfield, absolutely, you could look at it. But yeah, probably on the down low on the list. But definitely Philippou is one that you want to put in your blacklist next year. And we'll finish off the Brisbane Lions. Neil with a 109. That's just Neil. Yes, I did say the concern for him next week with Bedford. So maybe take that 109 and run, trade him out. But we saw Zorko with a 105. Good game. Wasn't really expecting a huge game from him, but yeah, absolutely taking that. I know a few people had him as captain, so did come home pretty strong in that last quarter. I think he had like a 34-point last quarter or something like that. So yeah, happy with that. Didn't get rested at all. I did think he was going to get rested, given that they were up by nearly 100 points in the fourth. But no, he's just fit and firing. So that's good to see, and probably gives you a bit of confidence if you do need to back him in as a captain later on in the year. Besides that, Dunkley 83, pretty disappointing from him. I think it's back-to-back pretty poor scores, or a pretty poor month realistically, but I still think he'd be okay. Who did they have next week? They've got GWS, so again, pretty tough. I don't think a Bedford could go over to him. I think it definitely goes to O'Neill, so it should be okay, and maybe even frees up a Dunkley. So I still don't mind Dunkley as a trade-in target, but you're probably looking at doing it the week after that, more fortunately, where he goes against Collingwood and Essendon to finish off. So, yeah. Besides that, reveal was the sub, so not really anything to mention there. But yeah, that was sort of does it for all the games. Just to sort of recap, I guess, Some of the trade out targets you should really be considering are cashing out your rookies. So you're talking your Dowlings, you're talking your Manners, Humphreys, and specifically Evans. You probably have at least one of those in your side still. So look to cash them out if you can. You don't want any cash left on your bench to finish off the season. Just get that all on field if you can. Number 2 is English. You need Marshall or Cherry. Just get on board of them. So if you have any of the other rocks, get off of him. But I think that English should be the number 1 trade target this week, and Marshall will be the number 1 trade target in. Number 3, I have probably Dacos. I still have Dacos up there as a big trade target, just given his run and possible tags. Isn't showing much of a ceiling at the moment, so I think it's just time to go. So he's there. I've also got Tom Green in there with that tough run to finish off the season. Where is that? There. Brisbane Lions this week, tough game. Fremantle and then Western Bulldogs. So I jumped off last week, so I recommend you do the same. And then finally, I've got F6 stinkers. So you've got Wood in there, you've got Myers. If you have anyone else like a Kerno or another forward like that, jump off him and you could probably just go easily to a Poo. A Philippou if you didn't get that, and yeah, that's an easy downgrade option for you and probably gives you enough cash to do what you need to do on the other side. So I think that'll be a pretty common theme this week. I think Poo will be a pretty common trading target this week for sure. So, but besides that, if you're looking for a defender, I highly recommend either a Newman, a Sinclair, or a Sheasel. I think those are all pretty good options. I think they're probably by far the clearest options. If you're looking for a midfielder, Steele, Anderson, Chalor, or the Port Boys, so Butters and Rosies, I highly like those options. Yeah, I think they all just have probably better runs than what most of the other guys do. Errol Gordon's obviously still up there, but I think everyone mostly has him this time of year, so probably could make one. If you don't have him, I still recommend getting him. We already spoke about the rucks, just Cherry and Marshall, jump on them. And in terms of forwards, I think you need to have more, and Philippou are the easiest options you do get onto. But we did discuss Tom Powell and also who else did we discuss? No, I can't remember now. I think you just go to Poo or Peatling was there as well. So, all right, well that sort of does it for today's video. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully this gives you some summary of what happened over the weekend. Did fortunately get to watch a fair few games, which was nice to do. So, but I'll catch you guys later on the week when we go through trade mode in captains. Have a good week and enjoy trades. Bye.